And we are live for part 2. Okay. Do I have a volunteer to read chapter 11?
I'll volunteer.
Go ahead.
All right. In the future, the Messianic king will arise and renew the Davidic dynasty, restoring it to its initial sovereignty. He will build a temple and gather the dispersed of Israel. Then, in the days, the observance of all the statutes will return to their previous state. We will offer sacrifices, observe the sabbatical and jubilee years according to all their particulars as described by the Torah. Anyone who does not believe in him or does not await his coming denies not only the statements of the other prophets, but those of the Torah of Moses, our teacher. The Torah testified to his coming, as Deuteronomy 30:3-5 states. God will bring back your captivity and have mercy upon you. He will again gather you from among the nations, even if your diaspora is at the ends of the heavens. God will gather you up from there and bring you to the land. These explicit words of the Torah include all the statements made by all the prophets. Reference to Mashiach is also made in the portion of Balaam, who prophesies about two anointed kings, the first anointed king David, who saved Israel from her oppressors, and the final anointed king who will arise from his descendants and save Israel in the end of days. That passage, number 24, 17-18, relates. I see it, but not now. This refers to David. I perceive it, but not in the future. This refers to the Messianic king. A star shall go forth from Jacob. This refers to David. And a staff shall arise in Israel. This refers to the Messianic king. Crushing all of Moab's princes. This refers to David, as 2 Samuel 8:2 relates. He smote Moab and measured them with a line. Disseminating all of Seth's descendants. This refers to the Messianic king about whom Zechariah 19 prophesies. He will rule from sea to sea. Edom will be demolished. This refers to David, as 2 Samuel 8:6 states. Edom became the servants of David. Seir will be destroyed. This refers to the Messianic king, as Obadiah 1:21 prophesies. Saviors will ascend Mount Zion to judge the mountains of Esau. 2. Similarly, with regard to the cities of refuge, Deuteronomy 19:8-9 states, when God will expand your borders, you must add 3 more cities. This command was never fulfilled. Surely God did not give this command in vain. There is no need to cite proofs from the works of the prophets, for all their books are filled with mention of this matter. Give me about 2 seconds, I get it. Okay. Number 3. One should not presume that the Messianic king must work miracles and wonders, bring about new phenomenon in the world, resurrect the dead, or perform other similar deeds. This is definitely not true. Proof can be brought from the fact that Rabbi Akiva, one of the greater sages of the Mishnah, was one of the supporters of King Bar Koziba. King Bar Koziba, and would describe him as the Messianic king. He and all the sages of his generation considered him to be the Messianic king until he was killed because of his sins. Once he was killed, they realized that he was not the Messiah. Sages did not speak of him for any signs or wonders. The sages did not ask him for any signs or wonders. What's wrong with me? The main thrust of the matter is this Torah, its statutes and its laws are everlasting. We may not add to them or detract from them. If a king will arise from the house of David who diligently contemplates the Torah and observes its mitzvot as described by the written law and the oral law, as David his ancestor will compel all of Israel to walk in the way of the Torah and rectify the breaches of its observance and fight the wars of God, we may, with assurance, consider him Mashiach. If he succeeds in the above, builds the temple in its place, and gathers the dispersed of Israel, he is definitely the Messiah. He will then improve the entire world, motivating all the nations to serve God together. As Zephaniah 3:9 states, I will transform the peoples to a pure language, that they all will call upon the name of God and serve him with one purpose. If he did not succeed to this degree or was killed, he surely is not the Redeemer promised by the Torah. Rather, he should be considered as all the other proper and complete kings of the Davidic dynasty who died. God caused him to arise only to test the many, as Daniel 11:35 states, and whom of the wise men will stumble, to try them, to refine, and to clarify until the appointed time, because the set time is in the future. Jesus of Nazareth, who aspired to be the Messiah and was executed by the court, was also alluded to in Daniel's prophecies. 11:4 states, the vulgar among your people shall exalt themselves in an attempt to fulfill the vision, but they shall stumble. Can there be a greater stumbling block than Christianity? All the prophets spoke of Mashiach as the Redeemer of Israel, and their Savior would gather their dispersed and strengthen their observance of the mitzvot. In contrast, Christianity caused the Jews to be slain by the sword, their remnants to be scattered and humbled, the Torah to be altered, and the majority of the world to err and serve a God other than the Lord. Nevertheless, the intent of the Creator of the world is not within the power of man to comprehend, for his ways are not our ways, nor are his thoughts our thoughts. Ultimately, all the deeds of Jesus of Nazareth and that Ishmaelite who arose after him will only serve to prepare the way for Mashiach's coming and the improvement of the entire world, motivating the nations to serve God together. As Zephaniah 3:9 states, I will transform the peoples to a purer language, that they all will call upon the name of God and serve him with one purpose. How will this come about? The entire world has already become filled with the mention of Mashiach, Torah, and mitzvot. These matters have been spread to the furthermost islands, to many stubborn-hearted nations. They discussed these matters and the mitzvot of the Torah, saying, these mitzvot are true, but were already negated in the present age and are not applicable for all time. Others say, implied in the mitzvot are hidden concepts that can only be understood simply. The Mashiach has already come and revealed these hidden truths. When the true Messianic king will arise and prove successful, his portion becoming exalted and his position becoming exalted and uplifted, they will all return and realize that their ancestors endowed them with a false heritage, and their prophets and ancestors caused them to err. This ends a stumbling of chapter 11.
I found that so interesting the way Maimonides puts it. It's like they come. It's been known among the nations, even stubborn nations. But how does it go? But even they err, for they say it is of no longer applicable for our day. I found that. Oh man, that was like, I like that. That tickled me a little bit. But I also hear, I don't know, I don't know, Rabbi. I also hear a lot of Jews also talk like that too. Rabbi, so primitive, we don't do this today. It's, you're from, 5,000 BC, it's today, we get that even within our group too. So, I don't know.
Okay.
All right, just a thought. No.
I don't really understand your thought, but that's
No, I mean, you hear it all the time, don't you? I mean, don't you? I don't know. People at the show sometimes I talk to the guys and they'll say to me, "Oh, so primitive, Rabbi. He does things this way. It's old fashioned. It's you know, it's this, it's that.
Well, if they don't like it, tell them to get bent and go to another shul. This is a very simple fix.
Right.
Because the people used to tell me the school I taught at before I moved, there was a small shul on the grounds of the school where staff and the kids would come to daven and everything. We had travelers passing by the village. They would stop to pray there. Oh, we don't like this. We don't like that you won't give our daughter an aliyah. I was like, this is an Orthodox shul. If you don't like it, go find a Reform shul. There's one in Tel Aviv. There's one in Netanya. Actually, it's a 10-minute drive. I can tell you where it's at. This is an Orthodox shul. We don't give women aliyahs here. Okay?
Right.
Deal with it.
I didn't think, because I've never looked. I never knew that Maimonides mentioned JC by name. Yeah, and the religion itself. I guess he would have to at that time.
Mm-hmm.
I actually perked up. My ears kind of perked up once you said the. Yeah.
You notice the contrast, though. Well, he talks about both Jesus and Muhammad, but he doesn't refer to Muhammad by name. Did you know that?
Oh, the stubborn nations. Is that what they mean? Is that what he was referring to as?
He calls Jesus of Nazareth by name, and he refers to Muhammad as quote unquote the Ishmaelite.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the Ishmaelite.
Ultimately, all the deeds of Jesus of Nazareth and that Ishmaelite who rose after him.
Yeah, it's Maimonides had a very weird philosophy with dealing with members of other religions. His basic formula was Christians are good, but Christianity is bad.
Right.
Islam is good, but Muslims are bad.
We talked about that in one show, yeah.
Well, he was forced to live in the closet, wasn't he? Like all the Jews.
In the closet.
No.
I can guarantee you when he wrote this, he did not distribute it. He wrote this originally as his own notes, like a guide for his own study. It wasn't published as a mass guide for halakha until after he died. But I can guarantee. I mean, look, he was the personal physician to the king, the Muslim ruler of Egypt at the time. I mean, if this was discovered, he could have been beheaded. But yeah, he had to be very careful. But you know what? He also suffered a lot under these people in his life. I mean, he was born in Cordoba, Spain, and then the Almohads, which were a Muslim dynasty, they gave all the Jews living in Spain a choice. You can convert, die, or go into exile. And they chose to leave. I mean, it's thought that Maimonides may have very briefly converted to Islam to save his own life so he could flee, because they didn't always give that choice. So he definitely, it comes out in some of his other writings that are not in Mishnah Torah either. He had a very, very deep enmity, very, very deep antipathy towards Muslims. He did not like them, even though he lived among them pretty much his entire life.
Mm-hmm.
It's understandable, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Some of the things he wrote a letter to the Jewish community in Yemen. They were being badly persecuted, and everything he said, like basically that these people are a little better than beasts and things like that. So he obviously had very strong opinions.
But it's so true, though, that I mean, nations that you would never even think. I could just imagine living back then, and just the contrast of what it is today. I mean, the Torah has spread. I mean, yeah, say what you want about Christianity, say what you want about Islam, but boy, oh boy, I mean, it's a lot better than what was there before, right? I mean,
in many ways, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I'm surprised he spoke this at the time. when he says, and this was almost 100 years ago, wasn't it? The entire world has already become filled with the mention of Mashiach, Torah, and mitzvot.
100 years. This was in the 1100s.
1,000 years ago. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I meant wrong.
One more zero. Yeah.
This would have been like during the Crusader period.
Even more so 1,000 years later.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm reading this and it's coming off like I'm like somebody wrote it a year ago or something.
Much of what he wrote is pretty timely. I mean, don't get me wrong; it was a very different world that he lived in than it is now. But in many ways, but I mean, he didn't know anything else. He knew. I mean, everybody he encountered. Yeah, think in Egypt, everybody he knew was a Jew, a Muslim, or a Christian. There was no third option. There was no. I mean, it's Muslims only let non-Muslims live among them if they were part of what's called al-Kitab, or people of the book, which means Christians or Jews, basically. And even then, there were restrictions. So, I mean, he didn't know of any other religions. He couldn't conceive of them.
The hidden truths. Don't we fall victim to this in Judaism as well? Others say implied in the mitzvot are hidden concepts that cannot be understood simply. Mashiach, and that was a big thing with Christianity. Is these hidden truths are already revealed. It was all about the mystery,
I like it made the statement of surely God does not make commandments in vain.
Right.
I mean that kills off Christianity pretty hardcore too. I mean when you think about it. The fact that they say it's done away with, or that we don't need, that's not applicable anymore. I mean that even talks about that too. It's not applicable anymore. It's old fashioned. It is timeless, really. You believe God is endless, unlimited, I mean, why would what he say be any different? I don't know.
Very timeless.
Is there any reference, will there be any reference to like the concept of the two messiahs, Messiah ben Yosef and Messiah ben David?
No, that doesn't appear to be a concept that Maimonides endorsed.
Okay.
Never seems to mention that anywhere.
Was that a theory that was around back then?
Yeah, there were different rabbis that spoke about it for sure. It just doesn't seem like he was one of them.
Okay. Interesting.
Yep.
In some respects, though, in a certain amount of fairness, as far as Christianity goes, that was the latest face of a particular mythology that had already existed. A particular individual rising to prominence, having 12 followers, would die, rise on the third day. And this was said of Mithras, I believe Osiris, several individuals. And Christianity just happened to be the latest of these religions, if you will, to adopt a particular, how should I say, structure that had already previously been assigned to other religions. So, in some respects, yes, okay, we can say Christianity, but I think that was just a way of pointing out the latest version of a particular myth, if I'm making myself clear.
Well, I mean, it's...
Yeah, the zeitgeist, yeah, sure.
It's basically like a slightly depaganized form of it.
Right.
How did the Jewish community react when Islam first came about? Was it fear? Was there any respect because of the push for the Abrahamic way?
That's actually a very interesting topic in and of itself. I hope to do a video about that someday. So in the early days, you have to separate Muhammad's life basically into two categories: his prophetic career in Mecca and his prophetic career in Medina, which is another city in the Arabian Peninsula. In Mecca, he had very, very friendly relations with the Jews in Arabia, and there were a lot of Jews in Arabia. Traders, merchants, there were whole tribes of Arabs that converted to Judaism. Much of the Arabian Peninsula was part of a Jewish kingdom, believe it or not. And it's very obvious that he had extensive contact with them, that he conversed with them, debated with them, or whatever. What a lot of people don't realize is that, and if you want to look at it honestly, Islam is just an Arabized Judaism. It's a lot of the same laws, a lot of the same concepts, with some slight alterations here and there.
Right.
Islam, at very first, Muhammad told his followers to do what the Jews do. He pray 3 times a day facing Jerusalem, not Mecca. It's thought that maybe Muhammad was a convert to Judaism and then later he did his own thing. That's a possibility. But when he gets to Medina and he gets some political power and the Jews there refuse to recognize him as a prophet, that's when things turn. And then he tells his followers to worship facing Mecca 5 times a day instead of Jerusalem 3 times a day. And the ultimate end of the Jewish community of Medina was all of the men were beheaded and all the women and children were sold into slavery. So yeah, it was not a good start by all means. And then within a following decade, all the Jews were kicked out of the Arabian Peninsula. So no, it was not. It started off very, very nice and very, very cordial, and then Muhammad became this kind of he transferred this Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. Oh, I'm just a lowly prophet of Allah, and I'm here to spread goodwill and tidings. And then he basically became the Arab Genghis Khan. So,
Little power and prestige changes a man. It's a shame.
I'm just waiting for the prophetic portion of this to be fulfilled.
What's that? What part are you talking about? I'm sorry.
When I believe it spoke briefly of how the whole world, he alluded to it, the whole world would come to Torah, and all the falsities would fall away. That we would achieve unity finally.
Amen. And of course, it ends with, we have been fed lies.
That's the portion.
Mm.
We've inherited nothing but falsities, fantasies, lies, whatever. And now it's time for some Torah, some truth.
Anybody up for chapter 12?
I could do chapter 12. Why not?
go ahead.
Awesome.
1. Do not presume that in the Masonic age, any facet of the world's nature will change or they will be innovations in the works of creation. Rather, the world will continue according to its pattern. Although Isaiah 11:6 states, the wolf will dwell with the lamb, the leopard would lie down with the young goat, and these words are metaphors and parable. The interpretation of the prophecy is as follows: Israel will dwell securely together with the wicked Gentiles, who are likened to a wolf and a leopard. As in the prophecy Jeremiah 5:6, a wolf from the wilderness shall spoil them, and a leopard will stalk their cities. They will all return to the true faith and no longer steal or destroy. Rather, they will eat permitted food at peace with Israel, as Isaiah 11:7 states, the lion will eat straw like an ox. Similarly, in the messianic prophecy of the nature and metaphors in the messianic age, everyone will realize such matters are implied by the metaphors which alludes there contained. 2. Our sages taught there will be no difference between the current age and the messianic age except for the emancipation from our subjugation to the Gentile kingdoms. The simple interpretation of the prophet's words appear to imply that the war of Gog and Magog will take place at the beginning of the messianic age. Before the war of Gog and Magog, a prophet will arise to inspire Israel to be upright and prepare their hearts, as Malachi 3:22 states, "Behold, I am sending you Elijah." He will not come to declare the pure and impure, or to declare the impure pure. That's a tongue twister. He will not dispute the lineage of those presumed to be the proper pedigree, nor will he validate the pedigree of those lineage who is presumed blemish. Rather, he will establish peace within the world, as it says within 3:2-4, Malachi, I guess, continues. He will turn the hearts of the fathers to the children. There are some sages who say that Elijah's coming will precede that of the coming of the Messiah, Mashiach. All those and similar matters cannot be defined known by man until they occur, for these matters are undefined in the prophet's words, and even the wise men who have no established traditions regarding these matters accept their own interpretations of the verse. Therefore, there are of a controversy among them regarding these matters. Regarding of the debate concerning these questions, neither the order of the occurrence of these events, of their precise details, are among the fundamental principles of faith. A person should not occupy themselves with the Agadot and the homiletics, the fables, basically, concerning these of the similar matters. Nor should he consider them as essential, for the study of them will neither bring fear or love of God. Similarly, one should not try to determine the appointed time of Mashiach's coming. Our sages declare, may the spirit of those who attempt to determine the time of Mashiach's coming expire. Rather, one should await and believe in the general concept of the matter as explained. 3. During the era of the Messianic king, once the kingdom has been established and all of Israel has been gathered around him, the entire nation's line of descendants will be established on the basis of his word, and the prophetic spirit will rest upon him. As Malachi 3:3 states, he shall sit as a refiner and a purifier. He will purify the lineage of the Levites first, stating that he is a priest of defined lineage. He is a Levite of defined lineage. And those whose lineage he will not recognize will be lowered to the status of Israelite. This implies by Ezra 2:63, the governor said to them, they shall not eat of the holy things until the priest arises, who will wear the Urim Vit Urim. Probably said that wrong. From the verse, you can infer that the prophetic spirit will be used to define and notify the pedigree of the lineage. He will define the lineage of the Israelites, and he will make known their tribal lineage alone, stating he is from this tribe and he is from the other tribe. He will not, by contrast, state concerning a person who is presumed to be of an unblemished lineage, he is illegitimate or he is a slave lineage, for the law is once a family has become intermingled with the entire Jewish people, they may remain intermingled. 4. The sages and the prophets did not yearn for the messianic era in order to have dominion over the entire world, to rule over Gentiles, to be exalted above the nations, by the nations, or to drink and eat and celebrate. Rather, they desire to be free and involve themselves in Torah and wisdom without any pressures and disturbances, so that they may merit the world to come, as explained in Halachot Teshuvah. 5. In that era, there will be neither famine nor war, envy or competition, for good will flow in abundance, and all the delights will freely available as will be as freely as available as dust, and the occupation of the world will be solely to know God. Therefore, the Jews will be great sages and know the hidden matters, grasping the knowledge of their Creator according to the full content of human potential. As Isaiah 11:9 states, the world will be filled with the knowledge of God as the waters covers the ocean bed. The complete halachot malachim of the entire text. This completes the halachot malachim, and the entire text. Blessed is he who speaks, and the world came into being as a whole with all of its particulars. This concludes the 14th book. The book of Judges. It contains 5 halachot and 81 chapters. Halachot Sederin, 26 chapter. I mean, I don't know if you want me to read this. I mean, it basically reads the names of the books in the entire text. There are.
No, you don't have to do that.
Yeah. Very nice. That we hit the end here. Nice.
Yeah, that's the end of it.
Wow, this was
concerns, muffin recipes, anything.
I mean, there's a lot to say about this. I mean, I like the fact that we don't yearn for this to be exalted above other people.
I like it. We just want to get on with Judy. We just want to get on being Jews.
Right. We don't want to be prosecuted. We don't want to be hated on. We don't want to be beat over the head with a stick.
We don't want to be put on pedestals. We don't want to be exalted.
Oh, that's like David Olesker. David Olesker is this. He's a guy who lives here. He's originally from the UK, but he made Aliyah and he lives here. He goes around speaking, usually overseas, on Israel's behalf. And, if he says, basically, if you could sum up the Jewish contribution to humanity in one word, that word would be civilization. He said, we gave you civilization. He said, what does Israel want? What do we want? If you want to know what a country really aspires to, you should look at its national anthem. And he says, the British have a fantastic national anthem. God Save the Queen. The French have an amazing national anthem. Germany has this amazing national anthem. Deutschland über alles in der Welt. Germany over everything else in the world. What's the Israeli national anthem? Hatikva, the hope. The hope of what? Liatam Hofshi Bartzenu, to be a free people in our land. Israel declares to the entire world that its greatest aspiration is leave us alone. He said, we have the nerdiest national anthem in the world. It's like Jerry Seinfeld, just leave us alone. and he says, we gave you civilization, and all we ask is that you leave us alone. And even that do we get?
To be free in our own land. Yeah, America says we came, we saw, we kicked ass. To be free in it. Wow, I never knew the national anthem over there.
Yeah, very good. I mean, I like the fact that You know, even though it's not something deliberately that we're going to be actively looking for, but apparently the Messiah will be able to sort of know who's from the tribe of Dan, who's from the tribe of Judah, who's from the tribe of Levi, who's from the tribe of whatever. I like that. Whose pedigree is good and not good, and that's interesting. I would like to see that, actually. I would love to. I mean, this is a fascinating concept to even think about, that a person will be able to do something like that. But I guess with today, with DNA testing, I don't know if that's the way it will be done, but I mean, I guess it's possible. Spiritually, whatever, physically.
One thing it says that the dead need not rise.
Yeah, where was that at?
It was, I think it was last chapter.
Okay.
Or he doesn't need, or it's a miracle. It's a miracle he was speaking of. I'm reading it right now. I'm finding it. I'm looking for it.
The world. I mean, it starts off really good. Number one, I mean, the world would not. The nature is not going to change. It's just going to go on as it is.
And obviously, understand here that this is not a binding position. This is Rambam's opinion.
That's true. Yeah. No, that's true. Sure.
Well, I think on that world not changing, I think what he was trying to point out is when the Messiah does arrive, the situation of the world will still be as it was. It's just when he shows up, that is the point where things begin to change. He will make a difference, but it's not as if he makes an appearance on the stage and then there's this miraculous transformation overnight or instantaneously. He begins a process of change.
Well, I took it to mean that the gravity is going to work like gravity. I mean, I mean, that's the way I took it. I mean,
Sure.
of course, the world's going to change because of. I mean, if Gentiles aren't going to act like Gentiles anymore, I mean, that's obviously not. I mean, that's not actually. I mean, there's actually something. Nature is actually changing, but
That's the process.
Right? Yeah.
I mean, like I said before, coming out of Egypt was a process. Going through the desert was a process. Right. Entering the land and taking control was a process. It's just a situation where you're definitely going to have to roll up your sleeves and get a little dirt on you because this involves you.
Right. It's obvious talking about we're going to still have a weather cycle. It's going to rain, evaporate. It's going to rain. That I mean, obviously that's what he's saying. I mean, the tornadoes are going to happen, or maybe tornadoes will not happen. Actually, it says. Oh, how does he word it? I forget. There will not. Number 5. In this era, there will not be war, or famine, or war, envy, or competition. For good will flow in abundance. So maybe things. I mean, I don't know. I mean, that seems like a little bit of weirdness. Like, I mean, if crops get affected and they get like fungus and they die out, and sometimes you get drought, sometimes you get heavy rain season. So obvious, maybe. I don't know. That's interesting. It says in the beginning, it will not change. Nature will not change. Creation will work the way it is. And then number 5, he goes, well, there won't be famine. There won't be war. There won't be so I don't know. That's an interesting. There's a balance, actually. I mean, obviously, there's some sort of balance.
Folks, I'm going to have to duck out here. We've got an errand that we need to run. Thank you for the class, Gav, and thank you for all of you for attending.
No.
Hope y'all have a great day.
You too, Ross. Take care.
Shalom, Ross.
Shalom.
I really, really enjoyed this this book, the 14th.
Yeah, it covers a lot of different areas, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. And of course, I'm all dreary sitting up, but I go to bed last night, and all I could do is just think about it.
Yeah.
And especially because it talks about us. It talks about non-Jewish people, and from the Jewish standpoint. So everybody should read this. Who's interested, curious. And of course, I did go off on 10 last night when stuff was going down. I guess I did to say, all right, there's a difference between an idolater and a Ben Noah. So like over here, in chapter was it 9 or 8? You go down and who's he talking about? Ben Noah, Ben Noah, Ben Noah, all the way down to Ben Noah. You get over to 10, and they're also talking about an idolater. So I had to point that out. And I like how you brought it up. Yeah, because this is a contention people have against the Bible. One of the things that a lot of folks have a contention on the Bible is how we treat women, especially in times of war. And when you look at the written Torah, it seems to be very cut and dry, and you can make a lot of assumptions on that. But when you got to Maimonides over here, you put it. It was like what the word you used was it disincentivizes carnal relations on the battlefield. It makes it so overwhelming. I mean, it really makes you think. It's like he's just making you think about this concept. He's walking you through the motions, If people only knew just how much care went into this issue.
Yeah. Rabbi Asher Mazer brought up on the Offense of Abraham. Quick plug. No, sorry. I think it was last week's episode, that Gog and Magog are not actually two different things. They're actually one nation. It's a man from Gog.
Right.
Gog is a man from Magog, or I don't know how to word it.
It's a country and its ruler, basically, is how it's understood.
Okay.
I actually have a pretty good article on that. I'll post it.
Please, yeah. On the outside, if you could.
Sure. I mean, I didn't write it. Someone I know did. It's quite excellent. It really kind of dumbs the whole issue of Gog and Magog down further, in a way that I find to be particularly helpful. Let me go ahead and find that real quick.
Thank you.
While you're looking for that, there's something else I'd also like to bring up. I'm flipping back through the book now. And it brought up something that, and it's talking about the Gentile, or the Ben Noach, who takes upon the laws. It says in here, he is to remain an Israelite in every way. He cannot go back to his, and when he wasn't talking about a convert. I'm trying to, I might go forever looking for this. But yeah, the Rambam identifies him as an Israelite. He cannot go back. He must remain or identify with, or remain an Israelite in every way.
Conversion is a one-way street.
And then, and then over here it said that the Torah is for the congregation of Jacob, or only for the congregation of Jacob.
Mm-hmm.
I also thought it was pretty interesting. This person, this Messiah, will be able to figure out who's a Levite. And then maybe someone's a Levite and he doesn't distinguish him as a Levite, he will be considered an Israelite. Did I get that right about how that was worded? What number was that? Number 3? No. Yeah, number 3, but second paragraph. He's going to purify the lineage of the Levites first, but then it says, where does it say that? I guess intermingled, right, when he defines the lineage of an Israelite, he will make their known, their tribal, okay, that means if he's from Dan, Judah, whatever. But then he says, oh, maybe I misread that. Maybe I misread it. Sorry.
The congregation of Jacob implies a greater collective than the stock of Jacob or the children of Israel. And the Rambam appears to be, I just think this would be good for a lot of people. I really think this stuff would be good for anybody watching. Not an idolater. Get your 7 laws down, but once you get the 7 laws, for his sake, and this is really good, healthy stuff. And the point I was bringing up is that there is a distinction made between a Ben Noach and a heathen, and that the Torah is for the congregation of Jacob. So if it shows a very interpersonal relationship between the children of Israel and those around them. In other words, you kind of have to be friendly to Israel first. You have to be a part of that. You know what I'm saying? I was going somewhere, but John had something important to say.
No, I misread it. I thought I thought it meant something else. I mean, it obviously makes it clear. I mean, he's going to make known who the Levites are, who the Israelites are. For some reason, I thought it said something like, well, if he's a Levite and he doesn't mention him being a Levite, he's going to be automatically an Israelite. I don't know why I thought that for some reason. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, if someone's, unless someone's going around claiming they're a Levite and he's a liar, and then I guess the Messiah will shed light on that particular individual.
I'm not sure why you would do that, but
right, yeah. I don't know. I don't know why I thought it said that. Just read it.
Most Jews today don't know their individual tribe. Some do. I do.
Right. So the default position is most Jews are from the tribe of either the tribe of Judah or the tribe of Levi. No.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we don't really know. That's the thing. Most people don't know. I mean, Levites have a pretty well-defined lineage. There are probably Levites walking around who don't know they're Levites.
Oh, sure. What I'm saying is, there aren't people running around claiming to be from the tribe of Dan.
Oh yeah.
Oh, they
yeah.
they are.
That's Ethiopian Jews.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. So there are people that think they know what tribe they are. Okay. Very good.
A lot of the Chinese believe they're one of the lost tribes. That's been going on for a long time.
Yeah.
How does Gavin? What do you join the tribe of the mother when you're the child of a convert?
No, this is complicated. Is the mother a convert or is the father?
Let's say the father, because I'm curious about the lineage.
So a convert doesn't really have a tribe. So right. The child would basically be more or less tribeless.
But it obviously says here that they're going to get intermingled anyway, right?
Mm-hmm. They are today.
But somehow the Mashiach will be able to, even though the intermingling has gone on. Okay, you're Reuven, you're Gad, you're Asher. He'll be able to pinpoint it.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Wow. Okay.
So,
wow,
the child will be tribeless. So there's no.
Does that mean he's like a free agent, like in baseball terms? He can go to whatever team. Can he graft himself onto a team?
He could live in the territory of any tribe, basically.
And then he'll marry whatever the particular tribe that is, and then their kids will be that tribe.
Only via the mother will their children be able, only via.
Well, that's the thing. Tribal identity only passes through the father.
So it would have to take 3 generations before the kids would have a tribe then.
Right. Correct.
Okay. Takes a while.
Yeah.
And it would have to go through the mother. Only then could his descendants have a tribal affiliation.
No.
Do
No.
the women? No.
After 3 generations. So, okay. The convert marries a woman who's a native-born Israelite. They have a child. That child goes on, and
No tribe.
Right.
Yeah.
And he has children. Another man in the 3rd generation will marry one of his daughters, or whatever, a native-born man will, and their children will finally have a tribe.
Okay.
So it's after 3 generations, and that's how conversion originally took multiple generations. It took 3 generations. It wasn't something they wanted to integrate people into the society kind of slowly.
Right. Yeah. Sure.
Makes
Yeah.
perfect sense.
Right. When they first took over, when they first came into the land, it was either Canaanites look, become Jewish. Second option is you have to live separate, but have to keep some things like Shabbos and stuff, or you can leave. Right? Wasn't that like sort of the attitude? And I mean that makes sense because you wouldn't want people within the neighborhood selling pork and breaking Shabbos, and it kind of confused things.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, we talked about this last night, the story of David and Bathsheba. Bathsheba's husband, his name is Uriah the Hittite, or, Uriah the Hittite.
Right, Uriah.
Okay, how is a Hittite in the army, an officer in the army of King David in ancient Israel? A Hittite's a different nationality.
Right. They're not bigots.
This is probably either a convert or the son of a convert that is not considered fully a member of the people yet. And he's still called, Ruth the Moabitess.
Right, it makes sense. Yeah. First, you got to be Abraham, then you got to be Isaac, and then you got to be Jacob.
Right.
Very good. Wow. I mean, for 2 chapters, I mean, that was pretty hard hitting, I have to say.
Yeah, it's hard hitting stuff.
Yeah. So Maimonides wasn't really clear on whether or not Elijah would precede the coming of Mashiach. There are some sages who say that's how he words it.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't like for him. His opinion was, could be that way.
He may or may not. Yeah, it's neither here nor there.
Then he also his opinion was, same thing with Midrash. Some people take those things as fundamentals. Some people don't.
Yeah, well, I mean, he clearly didn't take them that seriously. But he was a very, very Aristotelian, philosophical person. You have to understand, Maimonides was not popular in his lifetime or immediately after. He was very unpopular, actually. In France, other rabbis that didn't like him actually told their congregations to burn his writings. Don't read anything he writes. He offended a lot of people, especially with his concepts of God. I mean, a lot of the rabbis in France in the 10th century, in the 1100s or whatever, were what we would call corporealists. Through some mistaken interpretations, they actually conceived of God as having a physical body, like in heaven or whatever, and the God is basically a giant man in the sky. And Maimonides basically calls that heresy, which to an extent it is.
Yeah, I mean, how is that any different than being a Yashkanite?
Right.
But it was not a deliberate thing they chose to believe. It was an ignorant thing. The ignorant masses believed it.
I mean, the Bible talks like that. I mean, God took you out with a strong hand and an outstretched arm. He sits on his throne. Okay, does he have a butt? Does he have a hand? I mean, obviously, like Maimonides says, these are allegorical metaphors.
Right. And another big issue people had with him is, and this says a lot, how revolutionary the Mishnah Torah was. So the whole concept of the Mishnah Torah, which is the book we just read from, is that he wanted to take all of Torah law, biblical law, the 613 mitzvot, and all of the final rulings of the Sanhedrin, the court, the Talmud and everything, and can strip away all the debates, all of the legends, all of the folklore, all of the extra filler material, and just condense it down into a guide that the common man who is literate could read and study and have a firm knowledge of halakha, of the law.
He was very curt.
Yes, a lot of rabbis hated that, because what this does is, say a century after Maimonides dies, it's in the 1200s, and let's say Germany, middle of Germany. The common Jew, a common man who can read and write, he's literate, but he doesn't have a formal Torah education. He can actually check how honest and how learned his local Beit Din is, his local rabbi is. He can check to see if the local sofer is actually competent and knows how to make tefillin right. So you can understand how people who are shysters might not like that.
Yeah, sure. You're challenging authority, power to the people.
Yeah, you're enabling the masses to check to see how honest
on your BS
and learned their leaders are.
Well, that wasn't popular anywhere, was it?
Not for a couple centuries. I mean, he is now. I mean, no one today would say Maimonides was a heretic or a bad person. No one would say to burn his writings today. But when almost 1,000 years ago, yeah, he was pretty well hated, to be honest with you. But I mean, the brightest of every generation usually are hated.
Thank you for the Real Identity article. Origins of the Nations.
Looking back over this lesson, I'm still I'm on board. I can see the controversy. I know it's part of the Covenant and Controversy series.
Oh, nice.
I think it's I love the standard that he sets for the army, for the legions, or that is set in the law. But it kind of makes your heart swell a little bit. That's what I enjoyed about it. He doesn't mince words. He doesn't, he gets right to the heart of the matter. I found that very moving, because these are, war is hell. But to be a holy army, a standard, especially for its time, especially for, the time of, Moses and Aaron. And I know some of this was added later, but still, even, every time they go to the written Torah, these standards were set a long time ago. And I like it.
Yeah, I think it's great to have a base. I like the fact that you can separate, the folklore and legends. I mean, as much as I like the Midrash, and I dig the Kabbalah, and I like the Hasidus, I do like that stuff. But I do have to understand this. You got to put that to the side. Halacha, Torah is one thing, and then the stories are another thing, and then the legends are another thing, and the Hasidus is another thing. And you just have to. I like that make the distinctions. You make those, like Havdalah. Why do we make Havdalah? Because we want to make a distinction between what's Shabbos, the rest of the week. Got to know the differences. You got to know what you're talking about. That's good that he gave the power to the everyday person. That's good. I mean, thank God we have people that take that chance. And that takes. It took him courage.
Yeah, it did.
Hashtag courage. I mean, I don't want to sound like a, LGBT, liberal here, but yeah, courage to come out and do that. It's powerful.
Yeah.
And it is what it is. So how are we going to end the broadcast, Rabbi? You got something good for us?
I don't. Thank you for watching. Thanks for coming, fellas.
Shalom, y'all.
Take care.